listen to fall to the floor.
Hello. Welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. In the interest of providing my viewers with an overview of some of the new brands of pens coming out of China, we have this example from one of my favorite eBay suppliers. Here's the auction. This is an interesting mashup of a number of styles. They call it the 7263, and you can recognize that Wing Sung logo there at the top of the clip. Kind of an open design clip, kind of safari-ish like. And a Jinhao 599 like. It is a demonstrator with some color here in the piston mechanism, and as the eBay description said, it's the locking piston. You can hear that click, hopefully over the dog barking. But it clicks to lock, and it locks securely. So that's what's nice. Just a plain finial here at the top with an interesting dimple, which kind of replicates kind of like those gate marks that I talked about in some of the injection molded plastic pieces. And if you look at the cap at the bottom, you also notice that same type of mark. So they replicated that in the metal at the top, which I think is interesting. It has a similar style design here as to the 3008, and we'll compare that in a second. But very nice transparency, you know, fairly well made. No cap liner, but we have that black rubber O-ring, which would be nice if that was clear, which we see some of the O-rings like in the Pen BBS. It only came in an extra fine nib, and I do have a fine nib that will try that out in writing, as well as this extra fine, so you can take a look at what it came with and what it could have. The black feed, be nice if it had a transparent feed, but you know, it's an interesting mashup of different parts that we've seen in other pens. And just to compare it, here's the 3008. Considering it cost a few dollars more than the 3008, my first impression is it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. It's less weight, but the similar, almost identical piston filler. So the barrel is pretty much the same in both of these pens, including the little facets here at the bottom. But the 3008 has a clear feed, which obviously looks nicer, and has that same type of Lamy kind of platinum wing design nib there. The 3008 has this nice metal at the bottom, you know, reminiscent of the 580. So that's the comparison. And this is the blue 3008. This, I think, is the silver color, but I'm not certain how much that comes out. It appears to sometimes have a blue in it to my eyes. Like I said, from this part of the pens, you can't tell them apart. But my 3008's never had a clicking mechanism, but this does. So different ring here, metal ring here that unscrews to allow you to disassemble very easily without parts and do a thorough cleaning if needed. So we're going to ink this up, take a look at it, and then possibly look at different nibs on it. We're inked up, ready to put nib to paper. I only filled this half full. You know, I went up and down my normal 3 times just to flush and clean everything out and make certain everything is nice and saturated. Like the 3008 and the 580, it's not a pen I would post. The cap is not very secure. It attaches to the blind cap, so not good to do. What ink to use? You know, I've been on a Robert Oster kick, and I've used Velvet Storm before. I wanted just a dark kind of saturated ink, and this one fits the bill. Chromatography shows you it has a decent, interesting color variation to it. And I don't really go much into sheen, but you put a drop on a piece of paper and you can get some interesting sheen from it. But you know, this is a drop on a piece of Tomo River paper that dried for a day or two. Notice I sprung the nib. So that's one thing that you got to be careful about. It springs back, so that's what's nice, and now it's back to a fine line. But so be careful about putting pressure on this nib. It certainly doesn't survive. I mean, it's a nice extra fine nib. It is certainly wet enough. I mean, it is extremely wet. So it's also smooth, but don't push it. But you know, one of the things is I wanted to swap out some different nibs. I happen to have some spare nibs, so we'll cap this one up. And just to put it in perspective, I'm going to bring out a 3008 with the standard fine nib. So the extra fine nib in a 7363, they call it like a 0.38 millimeter, and this is a 0.5, and it's definitely a wider line. But when you think about the percentage difference between 0.38 and 0.5, it's pretty good. It's almost 25%. So that would be significant. And this nib also feels good. It's smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a Lamy 1.1 in here, which I got from eBay. We'll show you that auction, and we'll see how it works with that. So the Lamy nib is a little bit wider across the wings, so it fits really loose. It just takes a slight squeeze and it fits fine. So, you know, to me, the extra fine really works nice, but if you want some other variation, you could use this, and buying them from China makes them a little bit more affordable. I also have a 1.5, but I think this is big enough to go. As you can see, it does a nice job, and it certainly gives you that line variation between horizontal and vertical. And this is as smooth as well, it's smoother than the extra fine, because the extra fine, you know, if you use the same pressure, the thinner the nib, the more feedback, and the more you're going to feel the paper on it. I did swap the nibs hot, so I got some ink on my fingers. But, you know, this works well. So it's nice to have now some options. I've also put a Lamy broad in my Lambitude 3059, and I enjoy that. I didn't put a real shading ink in here, but if you did, I'm certain that would work well because of the wetness of the nib. So one of the things to keep in mind is this pen cost about twice as much, at least when I bought it, than the 3008. So it is a better pen. I would say overall, no. It's aesthetically slightly different. You know, the clip is different. It doesn't have a cap band, which a lot of people prefer a cap band because of the potential cracking issues. But the way this is with the O-ring in there, I don't think that's going to be a problem. You know, silver trim, rhodium plated, whatever you want to call it. You know, big finial on the top. It is slightly longer, but it weighs less than the 3008 because it has less metal on it. And those colors come out more intensely in this LED light than they did previously. So that's kind of it. And like I said, I wanted to just see a different pen, experience it, because I enjoy it. And a $5 investment was certainly worthwhile. You know, I had more fun than going to the movies. So that's how I kind of used to judge on the return on my investment and what I just spend my money on. So as you can see, this just works well. So this feed, even though it's a different feed than the Wingsung 3008, it still has this thing. Also doesn't have that metal thing at the end, but it still flares out, so you definitely know when you're down towards the end of the section. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed another look at another Chinese pen and another look at swapping nibs and how easy that is to do and how you can change the writing characteristics fairly easily. I also tried the Wing Sung Fine nib in here, and it mimicked exactly what we saw on the Wing Sung that I showed you, the 3008. So, you know, you can play around now, and one of the things I've talked about before is these Chinese pens are great because you can really hack them around, and for a few dollars, if you make a mistake, it's very easy to recover from that. So until next time, enjoy your pens, your inks, your nibs, paper, whatever. And always enjoy life, and hopefully pens add to your enjoyment. Until next time, bye.